Hello, I'm Jaro, and together with team we are working on Mysterium Network. So, what is Mysterium? Mysterium is a distributed network of nodes which are providing VPN service in exchange to cryptocurrency. In some sense, it's similar to Tor network. We are just using VPN protocol and we are adding incentivization on top of that. And how does it work? I'd like to share at least minimal uh, screen. So here you see that we do have two kind of nodes. There are providers and there are consumers. And providers are registering proposals into so-called broker service, and then consumers can fetch it from Discovery API and see those proposals, filter them by needed parameters, for example, country or type of IP, residential, data center, maybe bandwidth. And after that, they are choosing the node and establishing VPN tunnel. At the moment, we do support two protocols, OpenVPN and WireGuard. We are looking forward to add more protocols, for example, Socket 5 for proxy type of connections, and there could be added much more. When connection is established, nodes are actually starting paying providers. So consumer for each minute sending some kind of cryptographical proof signature, which could be later converted into transaction, into blockchain, and providers could get paid. While building this service, we faced quite a few challenges. And first of our challenge was that we don't control environment. Then we have to think a lot about backward compatibility, similar as Bitcoin network does and other networks as internet, for example, does. We do have many networking configuration in people's homes, different routers, Wi-Fi, ISPs, and in our case that's important. We do have to create some micro and even nano payments which there are no available easy to use solutions in the market, and we have to solve chicken and egg problem. We do have providers and consumers, and we have to advertise to both of them. So let's go step by step and talk more about each of them. First of all, we have to support many operating systems. We do need to support macOS, Ubuntu Linux, Raspberry Pis, Windows, Android, and many more in the future. We also have to run on different hardware, and so software have to be built for laptops or desktops, for mobile, which are using usually different CPUs, for microcomputers as Raspberry Pis. So even in terms of compiling, we do have challenges we have to not forget about all. So how we do solve? First, we are using Golang, which really looks at the proper choice for this solution, because we can provide binaries to many platforms, and Golang really works well, compiles into most of needed platforms, and allows fast experience. Second, our CI is all the time building for all the platforms at once, and we are providing not just binary of our node application, but we are packaging them into dep packages, and there is a Docker image also available. And finally, we do provide at least two different ways how people could build apps. Our mobile application is using our node and statically link using binary of our node application and statically links that to native or Android app written in Kotlin. And our desktop application is using RESTful API provided by Node. So people who are building on top of network can choose which approach they would like to use. Our CLI, by the way, is also using this exposed RESTful API. So let's talk a little bit about backwards compatibility challenges and why do we have them. First of all, Mysterium is not software as a service. These days, people usually thinks in software as a service parameters because when they're using Facebook, Google, YouTube, whatever apps, Google Docs, usually they're opening the browser and they are getting the newest version of the software. And Google controls everything actually. They do know server hardware on which they are running all the software. They do know they can upgrade and control how do they upgrade all the software. So all the clients, they're just downloading JavaScript and showing like interpreting that in the browser, and they usually have the same version. But in our case, we really don't control how people upgrade their software, when they will upgrade that. It reminds me the days when in the past people were writing desktop applications more. So that was a little bit headache for developers how to upgrade, and software as a service was quite cool solution. But in open source environment and in distributed environment, we have to step back and to work in this distributed way where we have to have backward compatibility. That's the problem also for Ethereum, for Bitcoin. So they all the time have to think that there are newer and elder clients in the network. So in our case, we try to provide a support at least for a couple of previous versions as much as we can. Sometimes we support many versions in the past. Sometimes when we breaking changes, we have to support at least something was installed a month ago, and we will need to increase that in the future. For Debian-based operating systems as Raspberry or Ubuntu, we do use unintended upgrades. So if people are installing via our scripts, we will push them newest version. And in our new desktop application, we also will introduce the feature which will on the app start will recheck if there is newer node version, and will download not the UI app itself but the node version, this binary package, and just change it. So we do hope that we will have less problems with the network compatibility, but that's still a challenge which really requires a lot of attention from our development, and it's unfortunately slowing down the process of developing. What is interesting and about what people could usually not think, but when you're working on network type of software, the Wi-Fi routers and like not only hardware in terms of that desktops, TVs, Raspberry Pis, Dockers, mobile phones, not only that we have this different hardware, but we also have different routers and different amount of hops. Sometimes it's quite easy and it's not that hard to establish tunnel between two nodes, consumers and providers. But sometimes there are much more hops, really different setups on IP. Some routers don't support some tricks, and we already seen that even in local networks where people are still don't have their external IP, you need to have at least up to 7 hops until you will get the router which already have external internet IP. Usually that's 2 or 3 hops. So that's like desktop, then you have Wi-Fi router which is connected to ISP, and then on there you have already that external IP. But sometimes that's a 7 different routers, even in that part, before you even jump into the internet. So we can't control environment, we can't control local network configuration firewalls. That's why we had to, in the beginning we thought that people could just expose IPs or use UPnP, but then we understood that we need to make it really plug and play, and we went through different nut hole punching methods. We tried at least 2 or 3 of them, and at the moment when some provider is installing the software, in 70% of cases we see that it just works for them, and we are punching the holes for this tunnel well. But unfortunately there are still cases when manual port forwarding is needed, and sometimes in rare configurations we even are not able to support at the moment, because that would require even more development and we have to move forward. Let's talk about micro payments and why we needed them. First of all, we needed payments which are trustless and permissionless. What does it mean? It means that providers which are global actors, consumers could be in China and provider in UK, so we needed payments which would be not banned by local governments, which would be not possible to filter and stop. It should be globally available. We needed instant and very often payments. So just imagine that all the sessions could have payments each minute, or sometimes even more often. And transaction sizes are extremely small, less than a penny. There are no known payment provider, Stripe, PayPal, they are talking about micropayments, but one transaction in their network costs at least 5 cents, just transaction fee. So if you want to move 1 cent, you will pay 5 cents on top of that. So that totally doesn't work for us. Also it don't work because it's not global. Then we could go for blockchain payments, but blockchain required from us to build additional layer on top of that. There is a technique called payment promises, or somehow digital checks. Just imagine that there are Alice which is top-upping 20 tokens into smart contract on blockchain, in our case on Ethereum blockchain. And then other people as a providing service to her, and she is sending those digital signatures to people, and after that Dave could settle received transaction to smart contract. Actually he could receive those 11 tokens one by one, so that's 11 off-chain transactions and 1 settlement transaction on blockchain. Then Carl do that, Bob do that. But if that would be the case, then as you see, Alice can promise more than she topped up to that smart contract. which is not very good because Dave was not aware that Alice at the same time was paying to Carol. So to fix this, we developed Hermes protocol, which is kind of similar to Lightning Network, but a little bit simplified. And in Hermes, consumer is topping up tokens into escrow smart contract, and only Hermes can move those tokens out of that escrow smart contract only with consumer's signature and only to Hermes smart contract. So consumer then sending the similar digital promises to providers. There could be millions of them because they are aggregating and only the last one is valid, last one per provider. And after that, providers, while collected some amount of promises, they are sending that transactions to Hermes to validate. And because Hermes is getting all the transactions sent by the consumer, there could be many Hermes hubs in the network, but consumer have to establish at least one escrow smart contract per one Hermes. So providers knows for sure that if Hermes gives them his signature, it means that Hermes has enough money in his smart contract. And after that, Hermes could get that transaction which consumer signed and settle it into his smart contract. And finally, providers are settling all the money to their wallets. In this case, every provider gets as much as they wanted, and Hermes is preventing from double spending. We have created a white paper about this. You can easily find that white paper on our GitHub just by looking smart contracts repo. And on that smart contracts repo, you can find all the smart contracts and the white paper with reasoning why we decided this way, why not we are using another protocols already created, and all the reasons. And finally, what's good about Hermes is that in our protocol, providers can aggregate a lot of promises. So they could get promises from many different consumers and settle all they earned in one transaction. They could do that each hour, they could do that once a month. Consumers can top up into this escrow smart contract or top up smart contract from any wallet they need. So we don't need a special wallet to top up for consumers, and they can top up even directly from exchanges, and we even allow to top up with MIST tokens or with ETH tokens, and smart contract will auto convert Ethereum tokens into MIST, which will be used in the network later. We settle and providers can settle at any time. At the moment, we are doing settlement via bounty program, but while our payment solution will be on mainnet, our work will be not needed there. And finally, Hermes is non-custodial. That means that even if tokens are stored in Hermes smart contract, we can't freeze those tokens. If a provider got signature from Hermes for some amount of tokens, he always can get those tokens from blockchain, even if we will switch off all of our servers. So, and the last but not least problem was how to solve chicken and egg problem. We do have consumers and providers in the network. If we would advertise for consumers and there would be not enough providers, they would not use our network. If we would advertise for providers but there are no consumers, so providers are not getting paid and they will go out of the network. So that's a really chicken and egg problem. Who is first? We could go one or another way by spinning, for example, by spinning our own nodes and advertising to consumers. But because we wanted to have really distributed network, not controlled by us, provided for people, we decided to establish bounty program for node providers. And at the moment we do have, depending on day, from 600 to 800 nodes in the network in many different locations, and nodes are getting paid bounties for running their nodes, even if they are not in the beginning we paid just for availability. So even if there was not enough traffic in the network, nodes were getting paid just for being there. Now we are slowly switching into regime when nodes are collecting test tokens and getting after that payments thanks to collected test tokens. And the very next stage will be moving to mainnet when nodes will be getting paid by ETH token. We do have couple of applications, but before talking about applications, I would like to talk about how we see the network. It's a layered system. So it's a base layer, it's a protocol itself, it's a Hermes payment system, it's a node software. Then we have the infra layer, it's a discovery service and some other services which will help people to act in the network. And finally, around that infrastructure, we do see applications layer. We do hope people will build a different kind of application on top of our network, from scraping services to paid subscription-based VPN apps, to maybe some proxy services, media services, and to show the first use cases, we created a desktop and mobile application. They are reference implementations of our protocol. They are open source, so any developer can go and get those sources and adapt. And actually, we already have one team, one company which decided to build a business on top of Mysterium Network, and they have created simplified version of Mysterium Network app. First, you're just choosing the country in that application, not the node, and the app is deciding on which node to use from that country. Another thing is that they are because most of people don't know how to use cryptocurrency, they added possibility to pay via fiat or Bitcoin or any other way people want, and to use subscription. And the company portals, VPN portals network will pay node providers in tokens. So I do think that that's valid use case as well, and I do believe that there are a lot of use cases people can create for TV consumer applications, maybe something for providing services, embed into, like, just imagine some gaming company would decide to make more money by providing services, or some restaurant network which already have public Wi-Fi's, they could spin off Mysterium nodes. So both providers and consumer applications could be built on top of Mysterium Network. And that's how we see the situation in the future. So please run your node. Go to our website and find guides how to do that. Just on Mysterium Network, run your node. There are the documentation how to run the node in Raspberry Pi, Docker, Linux, and start supporting decentralized network, and start make a little bit money in this pandemic world out of your internet. Uh, Another thing is which I wanted to say is that we really have bounty program for developers. So please code on top of Mysterium Network and watch for our can't be censored bounty program. There are many challenges for different applications you can code, and we do have prizes for that. We have different bounties from 5,000 to $500 in cryptocurrency for those who will build something on top of Mysterium. And finally, maybe you will even build business on top of that solution you will create. So we are really welcome you guys to work together with us. We would really like to see more people coding on top of Mysterium, using Mysterium, providing services of Mysterium, and helping us building this decentralized and less censored internet of the future. So please join the future, guys. I hope to create more videos explaining what is Mysterium, how it works, maybe doing some Ask Me Anything sessions once in a month. So please say in comments how did you like this video, what would you like to learn more about Mysterium, where you would like to go deep dive, and yes, see you soon.